In this video, I'm going to do a deep dive into how to plan a car camping trip. This video is broken up into two sections. The first one is really those things that you want to be thinking about in advance, maybe a few months in advance. And then the second half are things to be planning and preparing for as it gets closer to your trip. If you are new here, my name is Amanda, and this channel is really all about camping. So you're in the right place. Without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first step in planning a car camping trip is, of course, to figure out where you want to go. We're going to kind of use a running example throughout this video. Let's say you live on the East Coast and you want to do a camping trip out west. You want to kind of narrow down where it is you want to go. So let's say you want to come to Utah. This is where I live. I'm in southern Utah right now, and it's a beautiful state, tons to see and do. So let's say that's where you decide you want to plan a camping trip to Utah. The next thing to start doing is looking at maps and blog posts and getting a sense of what there is to see and do. And just write out a list of all of the cool things that you might want to experience. So for example, Utah has 5 national parks. We have dozens of state parks and recreation areas. So there are tons of things to see and do, and just getting a sense of what's available and some of the ones that you might want to do will help you narrow down where you want to camp. Many times where I decide to camp is actually chosen by the activities that I want to do. So in our example, you've decided you want to come to Utah and you've looked at all of the beautiful photos of the national parks and decided that you want to do a camping trip out to Arches National Park. At this point, we're going to start looking into camping options in that area. So there is a campground in Arches National Park, and there's also tons and tons of other camping options around the park. So you can find this info by just searching in a search engine, camping around so-and-so town or city or national park, just to get a sense, a lay of the land of kind of what's available and whether or not you want to do a campground or dispersed camping. Now I have a separate video that dives deep into these different types of camping, what they are, and some of the pros and cons to each. In general, campgrounds are going to have a lot more facilities, but they also come with potentially some reservations. Whereas dispersed camping is on public lands like BLM land or national forest, there's no facilities, so you're not making a reservation to secure a particular spot. This kind of folds into the next point, is figuring out what type of camping you want to do, where you want to camp, and securing any reservations if necessary. So let's say in our example, you want to camp at the campground in Arches National Park. You can look up information online about particular campgrounds and figure out if you need to get reservations. Some campgrounds are entirely first come, first serve, and you can't make reservations. Some campgrounds are entirely reservation only, and others are a combination of both. So it's a good idea if you have a particular date that you want to go camping in a particular area, look up and see if reservations are available, and maybe think about securing those in advance so that you have a spot. Some campgrounds, we're talking months in advance, you can make reservations, and really popular campgrounds in national parks tend to fill up really quickly. So if you have, again, very specific places and times in mind, it's a good idea to start thinking about these things months in advance. Now, if you go the other end and you kind of have an area that you want to go and things you want to see and do, but you're more flexible on specific dates, you can consider dispersed camping or find campgrounds that are first come, first serve. If you aren't going to get reservations, I would recommend that you do a lot of research about what's available in the area and that you have some backup plans in mind. So if you are going to go dispersed camping at a particular area and you get there and that spot is taken, do you have a backup plan? Is there another area that you know of that you can go check out and try to find a campsite? So now we've narrowed down where we want to camp, when we want to camp, we've gotten reservations for that particular time and area and date. The next thing that I like to think about in advance is what are the activities that you want to do, and do those activities need permits, or do you need to hire a guide to do those activities? So I would say most of the time, if you want to go day hiking, which is typically what I love to do when I go out camping, permits are not really always needed for day hikes, although there are definitely some exceptions to that. So check on all that beforehand. Again, if you want to go on a fishing trip or you want to do some special guided thing, do you need to book that stuff in advance? So just checking on all that, having a general idea of what you need beforehand is always a good idea. So how far in advance do you really need to be planning your camping trip? And like I already kind of said, it does depend on the type of camping that you're gonna do and where you're going. For example, most of the time I don't plan my camping trips months and months in advance because I'm pretty flexible with dates typically, and I mostly do dispersed camping. On the other hand, I try to do a camping trip with my dad every year. I take him out and we go to see some of the national parks out west. And since he has a full-time job, he can get away for specific dates. And especially if we're gonna try to go to a national park, for example, a few years ago, I wanted to take him to the Grand Canyon. So he gave me some dates that he could come out over the summer, and months in advance, I actually booked a campsite in the Grand Canyon National Park, the North Rim, so that I could secure a spot for those particular days on that trip. So how far in advance you plan does depend, but if you're less flexible and you're very set on camping in a particular spot on particular days, then you do want to start thinking about these things way in advance. All right, now I want to move on to some of the things that I'm planning and preparing for as it gets closer to my trip. So as my trip is approaching. First thing, fairly obvious, I'm going to check the weather and I'm going to check for any road closures or special things that might be going on in the area that I should be aware of. Checking the weather will of course help you pack appropriately. I always kind of look for the average highs and average lows of that time of year so that I can get a better sense of the type of weather that I'm going to be encountering. Next, I'm going to be thinking about my gear. What gear do I need for this trip? I want to be thinking about this with enough time for me to not only buy the gear, but also take the gear home, figure out how to actually use the gear, how to set it all up, and how to take care of it. So if you are a new camper, I've said this in some of my other videos, do not just buy, let's say, a brand new tent and chuck it in your car and try to set it up and figure it all out for the first time while you're actually out camping. Take the time to set it up at home, whether in your backyard or your living room or whatever it is, so that you are familiar with how it works, how to pack it all up again, and how to take care of it over the long term. So this is all stuff that you want to be doing before your trip. If you maybe have camped and it's been a while, take your gear out of the garage and set it up again. Make sure everything is working properly before you head out. Next, we have meal planning, and this is one of my favorite topics to dive into on this channel. We have so many resources when it comes to camp cooking and recipe ideas on my blog. There are tons of free printable recipes for camping, and so I have all of the resources for you here. But when it comes to my meals, I actually do plan them out at home, and I simply write down what I'm going to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for every single day that I'm camping. This doesn't have to be a rigid, elaborate plan, but it is so helpful to see it written out like, oh, okay, I need 3 dinners, I need 2 breakfasts, and then you can kind of make sure that you pack enough food for the duration of your trip. And then if you do want to do some fun cooking at camp, you can make sure you have all the ingredients. I have a free camp cooking starter kit. Check it out in the description below. It has a printable meal planner, and that's exactly what I use. It has a packing checklist and has a bunch of recipes, and it's just a really great resource if you're just getting into camping. Camping food does not have to be complicated. Again, I have no cook meals on this channel. I have no cooler meals, tons of easy dinner ideas, easy breakfast ideas. There is an abundance of resources, so take advantage of the things I have for you in the description below. The last thing that I want to talk about is safety. So this is research that you can do at home, but do you know where the closest emergency center is relative to where you're camping? Do you know where the closest gas station is or grocery store? Do you have a med kit in your car? So thinking about these things at home allows you to adapt and be more prepared when you actually head out. And this is, I think, very overlooked when it comes to planning, but it's always a good idea to know how far the closest emergency center is from where you're going to be, right? Like, it's just really good information to have. And then to also be prepared to handle any first aid that might come up. Along with safety, after you have planned your entire trip and you're ready to go out, make sure you give all of the who, what, when, and where details, and leave that information with several people back at home so people know where you're going, exactly what you're doing, how long you're staying, who you're going to be with. Again, leave as many details as possible before you actually head out. So there you have it. This is a solid overview of how I plan for a camping trip. I really hope this was helpful. Make sure to check out tons of other resources that I linked for you in the description below. And if you have any questions, just comment below. The more prepared you can be with an understanding of where you're going, what you want to do, the things that are in the area, and taking all the appropriate safety precautions will really allow you to have a safe, fun camping trip and adapt if things don't go to plan. So I hope this was helpful. Make sure to give it a like, and I will see you in the next one.